Good morning, everyone. My name is Laudisoit, and I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk about the chimpanzees from the Garamba complex in North-Eastern DRC. I'm speaking on behalf of a team of researchers who have silently collected data on the species over nearly 20 years, but those reports remain unpublished. However, today I'm not going to talk about what has been done in those very last decades, but rather what we found in the recent years, in the recent 2 years. So first of all, the Garamba complex is located at the crossroads of South Sudan, Uganda, and Central African Republic, where population of chimpanzees, large population of eastern chimpanzees have been described. Yet the population of the Garamba National Park remain unknown. Thanks to the effort of African Park since 2005, with the Institute for Conservation of Nature in the Congo, ICCN, efforts have been made to secure the area and allow researchers to access zones that were previously inaccessible. It is also a World Heritage Site since 1980. The Garamba complex consists of the Garamba National Park, which is a fully protected area, and 3 hunting domains, Azande, Gangalanamodio, and Mondo-Missa. The first time chimpanzees were reported from this area was by Allen in 1925, who actually described Pine 30 as a long-haired type of chimpanzees based on 53 specimens collected around the area. Then you had the Sager mission between 52 and 54, in which they described chimpanzee nests, but they didn't see the chimpanzees. And they say that chimpanzee build nests up to 7-8 meters high, and usually by the groups of 2. Then in the decade 1980 to 95, you had great work performed by Cass Smith and her husband, and they saw 25 specimens in Azande Hunting Domain. Then in the later year, in 2008, Amube started to list here as hoots and sea nests in Mondo-Missa domain. In the subsequent years, they started to perform wikis and transects as well. They observed chimpanzees, up to 10 individuals at a given time. And they also recorded for the first time a nest encounter rate of 0.41 nests per kilometer. But then came the first image, thanks to the technology, by Markéta Antoninova, who for the first time recorded a chimpanzee on a camera trap. If you look at the map and the map of the historical sightings or hearings or nest observations within the whole complex, you can see here in red that Mondo-Missa seems to be a hotspot. So we focused on Mondo-Missa in 2021 and 22, and I'm going to focus also on a specific area which is called Berry. But first of all, the Garamba climate is a tropical semi-humid climate, and it has a very large amplitude and variation in precipitation. Yet, you can expect 8 to 9 months of precipitation every year with an average annual temperature of 25 degrees. We have in 2021 and 2022 explored 4 sites, 2 of them in Mondo-Missa, 1 of them outside the park, and 1 of them in Azande Hunting Domain, where nobody had been allowed to perform research in 1994. So Berry consists mostly of gallery forest, gallery forest along streams. In Guru, it's more or less focused on forest blocks along small streams, but as you can see on the image, is more packed. Outside the park in Kwadje, you have 2 small fragments that are less than 1 square kilometer and that have a very specific history, which is too long to tell in this talk. And then finally, Azande, you have to go with a helicopter because the roads are not really practicable. And we were dropped there in early this year in 2022. We placed camera traps in Ngoy and Buru last year. We placed camera traps in Azande this year. And we didn't place camera traps in Kurukwata due to very high anthropogenic impact. In Bere, as I said, we will focus on that area. Why? Because this is the site where most of the research has been performed since 2007. And since 2021, we recorded 152 nests and walked 45 kilometer wikis. The nest encounter rate was very variable, with sometimes zero nests. For example, when we were walking in a gallery forest with a lot of mining pits around, up to 16.7 nests per kilometer, where there was obviously no anthropogenic disturbances. The average being 4.7 nest encounter per kilometer wiki walk. The variation was very intense because I'm not presenting all the data here, but the green dots, are the past observation. The hotspots in red are the ones that we found in the last 2 years. And as you can tell, there are two sites that are hotspots for nest building. Those two sites are semi-deciduous, temporary inundated secondary gallery forests. And the high concentration of nests were always observed near the head of the stream. If you see the polygon that's been drawn around the hotspot for nest building, it's about 18.5 square kilometers. And we drew a buffer area of 500 meters around to try to design a future protected area, potentially for ecotourism and for visitors to come and observe chimpanzees. And if we simplify the classification, the vegetation classification, it is clear that gallery forests are the sites where chimpanzees like to build their nests. Habitats are not suitable everywhere. Unsuitable patches of habitat include savanna, herbaceous savanna, and Inselberg or inundated grasslands. But as you can see, there are also a lot of termite needs. And during all our work, we never collected tools. We never saw tool use in those areas. But of course, we didn't put camera traps in those areas. So we have no idea on the savanna used by the chimpanzees. The suitable habitats, as I said, are more located around streams and stream heads in a rather middle dense understory, where you have also a concentration of very high or tall trees. And speaking about trees, we have analyzed our data, but also we went back to the old data that had been collected, trying to associate the local names with Latin names with a botanist who came with us in the last mission. And it's clear that there are some trees that seem to be preferred by chimpanzees. However, we haven't been performing any analysis on the density of those trees. So this is very preliminary, but clearly there are some trees like the Sansepalum, Lanea, Cola gigantea that are very important in those areas for the chimpanzees to build nests. What we saw is that mine pits, when they are abundant, even if those trees are present, we find no nests. While if you have no mine pits or all mine pits, meaning less anthropogenic disturbances, and even though it's very close to the villages, and if tall trees are present, then you find nests, which is very surprising because one of the sites had the highest concentration of nests, and it was less than 2 kilometers from the Bere village. What we also did is we compared the nest height between the different sites, considering the level of anthropogenic disturbances. And even though those are preliminary data, we found ground nests in the sites that were the least disturbed. We found lower nests in Azande that has no human impact because of past poaching and past wars. And the more disturbed, the higher the nest. And the data that I presented show you the different sites with the average nest height and the minimum and maximum. And it is clear that even though we still need to do some deeper analysis, there is a tendency to show, there is a trend that shows that the higher the anthropogenic disturbance, the higher the. We also performed some interviews by the community, the local communities, and what came out is that whatever for the tribes, the 3 tribes that live there, the Logo, the Mondo, and the Azande, they respect the chimpanzees as their ancestors, and that is clearly a protective factor. It's a protective factor to the point that in Kurukwata, outside of the park, that benefit of no protection, there is no ranger, there is no patrol, there is a very small fragment that is less than 1 square kilometer where you found a very high concentration of nests, and people relate like stories about chimpanzees interacting with them and saying that they don't know how to interact with them. Another interesting fact is that they don't sleep in the fragment that is up north on the screen, but they come and forage there seasonally, crossing the national road and coming back to sleep in the smallest fragment, which is more or less 7 kilometers away. So they do patrol, they do go and explore 15 kilometers a day, probably to get some food. And we think that it might be Landolphia. When it comes to chimpanzee density, because probably that's the first time you see the face of the Garamba chimpanzees, it was very difficult to try to assess chimpanzee density based on scattered data over different reports. And so we did our best to try to produce a first estimate. So we used the following as a proxy for surface area. We took the nest locations and the maximum convex polygon that was drawn using the outer nests, the most outer nest of each side. And the preliminary core home range for both bear and burro, interestingly, comes to 18.5 square kilometers. And based on the maximum number of nests of the same age category in a nest zone, and based on camera trap footage and individual identification, and or because we had to combine both sometimes, the camera trap footage and the maximum number of individuals seen on one single camera trap footage, we try to deduct or to infer density. So for bear and burro, which are both in Mondo-Missa, we could find that the minimum density was 0.27 and the maximum was 0.70, with an average of 0.59 chimpanzee per square kilometer. So yes, the density is very low. This is a first approximation. We need to dig further. We need to perform transects. We need to place probably more camera traps. But actually, this is consistent with what has been found is another mosaic of gallery forest and savanna for other chimpanzee populations. In both communities, we try to establish the community composition. And what came out is that there is a very low adult male representation in both communities. When it comes to sympatric mammals in Mondo-Missa, there are lots of different mammals. We recorded along our walks and on camera traps 40 different mammal species. They are predators like the leopards. They might be competitors like other monkeys. Baboons are very, very abundant. We have no assessment of their density. And that's for Mondo-Missa. But when we came to Azande, we got the magical surprise to see that there were some colobus, red colobus, Pileocolobus ustaleti. They had not been reported or seen in that area since 1952, which is reported by Grove in 2007 newspaper. So that was amazing. We were able to observe them. And as you know, red colobus are prey for chimpanzees. So there are lots of unknowns also, whether or not the Garamba chimpanzees hunt or prey on those red colobus. So there is a very big potential for more research in that area. Unfortunately, this is a very remote area that needs a lot of security, but we hope that in the future we'll be able to combine both research on chimpanzees and red colobus. So to summarize, yes, we are filling a gap slowly but surely. The chimpanzees in the Garamba complex are confirmed. Their presence is confirmed. It is not confirmed in the Ngala hunting domain so far. It is not confirmed in the park itself so far. The density estimates are very approximative and they need to be refined. We are planning to produce a suitable habitat mapping based on the suitable habitat and characteristics that we have collected, because we have collected a lot of ground truth points that will allow for a better classification of the whole habitat of the park. The nesting behavior tends to show that there might be human avoidance behavior, and that also needs further research. We also want to know who are they phylogenetically, how do they link to the population that are surrounding, like has been published actually today or yesterday for you in the great paper by Monterrey and collaborators from the PANAF consortium. We have no ID, but we collected some feces, and as you know, it's not always easy to export samples to get them on the bench or to get analysis done in country, but we are working on it. We have no ideas whether those chimpanzees use tools, but seeing the density and the number of termite mounds and seeing what happens in other countries when there is a lot of opportunity to eat termites, it will be interesting to keep surveying this. We have no idea if they actively hunt other mammals, especially knowing the presence of the red colobus. And finally, the threats and the protective factors. We have noticed clearly that beliefs and traditions is a protective factor, and that mining in suitable habitat is a clearly threatening factor. With that, I thank you for your attention. I'm very sorry not to be there with you. And I wish that we could have a discussion about the area and the chimpanzee population. Do not hesitate to shoot me an email, and I can also liaise with the team. We are looking for collaborations, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you.